Hi guys, this is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. Today I'm going to be showing you a technique that I saw from Jennifer McGuire. It's creating backgrounds with Distress ink and a stamp block. So these are two that I've created off camera and then an additional two. And basically what you're doing is taking Distress inks, taking Zig Clean Clear brush markers, you can use Hero Arts inks, and you're putting it on a stamp block, spraying it down, and just stamping it onto the watercolor paper. So Jennifer McGuire did some awesome backgrounds with hers, and she used distress markers. So I decided to give it a try, but I also wanted to try it with the Zig Clean Clear brush markers and also the Hero Arts. So I'll kind of let you know how I felt like they worked as far as the Hero Arts and the Zig. The distress works wonderful. She created some gorgeous cards, and I was excited to try this technique and get in and play with it. So these are two of the Zig Clean Clear brush markers that I used one of the Lawn Fawn Octagon blocks off camera to create. All of the blocks that I'm using today are Lawn Fawn blocks. They're just different sizes and shapes. So I'm going to create some. This is one, if you don't push on it all the way, you'll get kind of the little white areas in it. This is a rainbow one that I did. And this blue one is Distress ink, and I'm actually going to cut this one down and use it to make one of the cards. I'm going to make two cards in this video as well. This is a rainbow one I did off camera using Hero Arts, and I'm going to do one on camera with Hero Arts and kind of give you my opinion on the ink. So the first one that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a distress, and I am using the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. I've just used the largest Lawn Fawn rectangle die and cut it down. So I'm going to use the large block, and I'm going to use the Weathered Wood and Stormy Sky distress, and these are just regular distress inks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Weathered Wood and just wipe horizontally on my block, and then I'll go underneath of it and use the Stormy Sky. So I'm going to work all the way down on my block. A few things to let you know as well. You will need a sprayer. I'm used the Distress spray bottle, and you want to make sure that you wet it up really well, because that's what's going to help that ink to kind of move around. You also need to have some type of heavy object to put on it. So I used a candle. Jennifer McGuire had said that to leave it on for 5 minutes. She kind of tested it, so I know she tested it, so I used her 5 minutes. So you can see as I push down on it how the colors kind of go together because of the water. And I'm going to set the candle on it for 5 minutes and come back and lift it up. And you're going to see when I pull the block up, it leaves this awesome design. Now you can leave that just like that and let it dry so it'll have those kind of runs in it. I took a cloth and just gently dabbed it. I kind of wish I wouldn't have. I wish I would have left some of that there. It wipes off very easily off your block as well. Just used a dry cloth and wiped it off. So the next one I'm going to do is the Zig Clean brush markers, and I'm going to go in a diagonal position with this, and I do have all the supplies listed on my blog and in the video description, but the colors that I'm using are red, orange, lemon yellow, light violet, fluorescent green, and dull blue. So you'll see me pick up the block here because the yellow and the green is a little bit hard to see. So I wanted to pick it up just to make sure that I was getting complete coverage. So the block was big enough that I actually did my violet, and I just started back over with my rainbow order again and just started using the red. So I'm going to go clear to the bottom, and I believe I get to the yellow. And I'm going to spray it well with my Distress spray bottle. Once I get it sprayed, I'm just going to turn it over onto my watercolor paper. You can see the colors blend. Put my candle on it. And we're going to come back, and it's gorgeous through the block. It's so pretty just even through the block. And as you take it off, you'll see, and I'm going to dab just the corner of it. I just love this one. It almost had kind of like a tie-dye effect. it just makes such gorgeous backgrounds, and it's so easy. So I'm going to use the Hero Arts, and the colors that I'm using, and I'm using the hybrid ink, the Summer Sky and the Strawberry. So I decided to use dark colors this time. When I did the one that I showed you from off camera, I used some lighter colors in rainbow order, and I just didn't get a very dark print when I put up the block, so I thought maybe if I use some darker colors. And you can see they go on the block really, really well. I just did one on each side. I'm going to spray it down well as well, because I thought, okay, maybe I didn't use enough water last time, because it's not distress ink, so they're not going to necessarily react with the water. So I'm going to put it on. You can see it's got great color from there. I'm going to put my candle on, or I'm sorry, I actually used my cement box, and I'm going to leave it on there for the 5 minutes. And while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and do another one. And for this one, I'm going to use 3 Distress Pink colors. I'm going to use Sponge Sugar, Worn Lipstick, and Picked Raspberry, and I'm going to start with the Sponge Sugar. And for this one, I'm using the 2x3 block, I believe, the Lawn Fawn 2x3 block. So I'm going to put the Picked Raspberry on and then spray it, and go ahead and set this one down as well. And I love when you push on it, you can see all the colors come through. It's so pretty. Put my candle on there, which is Pink Sands, by the way, my favorite. So you'll see how gorgeous the color is. I was so excited. And then I lift it up, and it's pretty faded. So it's still nice. It's got that faded look, but it just wasn't really what I was going for. The other thing is, you see me using my Lawn Fawn stamp chamois. It is really, really hard to get that ink off my stamp block. I actually ended up using the StazOn spray cleaner to get it off. So you can see how faded it is. I'm going to bring the rainbow one in. You can just see the difference between the Distress ink and the Zig and the Hero Arts. It gives just a different textured and background, just not really something I was going for. If you wanted a little more faded though, it did work fine. And you see it just wipes right off the Distress. So the card there on the left, I'm going to kind of ignore. I ended up messing that one up. I do want to redo it. What I did is I used the sand on the bottom. So I cut down the one I told you, and I'm using the My Favorite Things Mermazing stamp set. I love this stamp set. These little mermaids are just gorgeous. And the mermaid that's there, I actually had colored the last day of school. I'm a teacher, so my kids were watching a movie, and so I decided I would color. And I honestly do not remember what colors I used, so I won't have the Copic colors for her, but for the other card I'm going to do, I will have those colors. So I decided to pull out some of the Schools of Fish and just kind of give them a black shadow effect. I'm going to use Versamark ink, which gives a very dark, crisp black ink. And I'm going to use my Misty stamping tool for this. You could definitely just use a stamp block. I hate to say it, but I'm kind of reliant. I rely so much on my Misty tool because for so many years before the Misty tool came out, I didn't get good stamping quality, and I was very frustrated with stamping. So the Misty tool has just been amazing. So I'm going to stamp the two different, there's a School of 4 and I believe a School of 3. And I'm going to place 2 of the Schools of Fish kind of behind the mermaid. I wanted to give it some dimension since the card is relatively flat. Now I am going to pop the mermaid up with some 3M foam tape, but I wanted to give it just a little bit more dimension. So you can see the one is up there near her hair, and I'm going to do another one down by her tail. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but her hair is almost like a lime green color. The color really didn't show up. It actually turned out really pretty. And I'm going to do a School of Fish down by her tail. I also took these two and reversed them so they're actually swimming the opposite direction from the other ones. Okay, so now that my fish are on, I need to decide what I'm going to do for my sentiment. And I kind of went back and forth between 2 different sentiments. with the stamp set. The one that says "You're Mermazing," I almost chose that one, but then I decided to do the other one just because it was a little bit bigger. So the one that I chose is the Oceans of Love one. It's a 2-line sentiment, and it just kind of filled up that space at the bottom. I had thought about embossing some seaweed down there, but I decided just to do the sentiment. So I'm trying to decide here. I have 2 different embossing powders. I have the Ranger purple, and then I have the lime green. And I decided to go with the lime green because the purple was a little too close to her tail and her body, and I just thought the lime green would stand out. So I'm going to use the Versamark ink and stamp it up really well. I'm going to use my powder tool. Because this is watercolor paper, it's textured, so I'm going to stamp it with the Versamark ink twice, just to make sure that I've got that sentiment covered up completely. So I'm going to go through and stamp it again. And I'm going to use the lime green, and I don't like it. When it comes out, it's not really lime. It's more like a pea green color, and I did not like it at all. So I'm actually going to fix it. I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix it here in a moment. As you can see, it looks pretty bright, but once it actually was heat embossed on, it was more like a pea soup green color. It wasn't really a lime, like a bright lime green that I wanted, and it really didn't match her hair or anything on the card. So I'm going to put her up there and realize that this is not what I want. So the way I'm going to fix it, and if you weren't aware you could do this, this is a great little tip. I'm going to just heat emboss right over top of it. So I'm going to line my sentiment up, which ended up being off camera a little bit. I'll move the Misty up here in a moment. And I'm going to put it back in my Misty door, and I'm going to use my Versamark ink again, and I'm going to stamp that up, and this time I'm going to use the purple. So you can heat emboss right over heat embossing. It works a lot better if you're going from a lighter to a darker. And what happened is some of it actually, the green ended up kind of being a little bit of an outline to the purple, so it ended up coming out really nice. And the purple was definitely much better, as you'll see here. And I do have my heat gun heating up. I start heating up my heat gun when I'm stamping the Versamark ink because I want it to be nice and hot, especially on this watercolor paper because it will warp a little bit. So I'm going to use my Tombow adhesive runner and adhere this to my card base, which is a Neenah 110 pound. Both of my card bases are Neenah 110 pound, and they're cut to a 2 size card. So when I get it on, I don't exactly have it straight, so I have to pick it up, and some of that adhesive is left at the top. So to get rid of that, I'm going to take my adhesive eraser, and this is a very inexpensive tool to have at your disposal. It's great. It gets rid of any little adhesive that you've got. It's inexpensive and it lasts forever. So I'm going to use the foam tape and pop her up. I had thought about using Fun Foam, which I am going to use in the next card, but it was simple enough to go ahead and get her popped up with the foam tape, so I just went ahead and used it. So I'm going to place her in the center, and I'm going to go in. There was a little part at the top where the watercolor had kind of come off, so I just used one of my Zig markers that matched it and used my watercolor pen and fixed it right up so you couldn't even tell. So I'm going to use my Wink of Stella and just to give her hair some glitter and shimmer and down onto her outfit. And I'm also going to use a black gel pen just to give her little tail and the bottom part of her her little suit just some added effect. I just did some little black lines, dots on the side and then down on her tail. And then I'll also go use that same black gel pen for her eyes. And I'm going to use just a little bit of glossy accents on the little flower in her hair. Very simple card. This background was just fit perfect. When I did this, I knew I wanted to use her in a card, and when I saw Jennifer McGuire's video, it was just perfect for that background. So that's the Little Mermaid. So this was the very first background that we did with the weathered wood and stormy sky. And this is a dog that I colored earlier from Tim Holtz Crazy Dogs, and I'm going to use the Honeybee Blah 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 sentiment stamp. If you want a fun and unusual sentiment stamp, this Honeybee Blah 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 is an awesome one to have. So the look on the dog's face, what I decided to go with is, do I have to adult today? I don't want to adult today. I just thought it was perfect with the little look on his face. Now I do have listed the Copic markers that I used to color him. So the question mark was a little bit out of line, so I'm just going to realign it right there on my Misty. And for this sentiment, I'm going to use black Memento ink, and I'm just going to heat emboss it with clear. The Wow clear heat embossing. So I'm going to stamp it up, and when I ink it to stamp it again, it kind of gets a little clumpy, and sometimes with sentiments it will do this. And so what I found the best thing to do is just get rid of it. So I'm using my Lawn Fawn Chamois, erasing it, and just re-inking it up, just to make sure I have a crisp clear and my letters aren't all hooked together because of the ink clumping. So I'm going to use the Wow embossing powder, the clear, and I go ahead and clean up because my heat gun is heating up, and also that way I'm not heating up the embossing powder that's sitting there. So I'm going to heat emboss this, flip it over, because again it is that watercolor paper. Get it heat set, and I'm making sure I've got my dog where I want him to go, and I'm going to adhere this to a card base as well, and using my Swiffer to get that cleaned up. Another thing you should have at your disposal. Lifesaver, so much easier to clean up. So I'm going to adhere this down, and I decide for the dog, because of his tail and his little paws, that I am going to die cut a piece of fun foam, and it went on and lined up very easily, so it was definitely the right call. And the fun foam that I have is adhesive on the back. So when I use it, I use that as what I stick to my card panel, and then I put adhesive on the top part that I stick my die cut to. The reason I do that is if I need to readjust it or move it around, it's a lot easier to reposition the Tombow tape than it is that adhesive that's on the back of that foam tape, or fun foam. So I've got my dog lined up, and one of the things that I thought I had in the video, but apparently it didn't, is I am going to use the Copic C3, the cool gray, and just ground him so he's not kind of floating above the sentiment, and you'll see that in the finished card. So I'm going to center him on, and I had already used a gel pen to go over his eyes and his body, so those are the two cards. The Tim Holtz Crazy Dogs, and I don't know what happened to my video there. Okay, there we go. So there is the mermaid, and you can see the grounding there on the Crazy Dogs. You can see the glitter on her. I just think that one came out so beautiful. Such fun creating with these backgrounds. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know and check out my blog, leave your comments. I'd love to see what you guys have created. I'm so thankful and grateful for crafters like Jennifer McGuire who give us these great ideas and allow us to run with them and be creative. So have a great day.